Tonight, we are zipping ourselves into something a little restrictive. A girdle, a smile, and the crushing expectations of an entire decade. We are traveling back to the 1950s to live not one life, but two. The wildly different worlds of the American woman in the suburbs and the American woman in the city. One has a brand new dishwasher and a quiet scream building somewhere behind her eyes. The other has a paycheck, a tiny apartment, and a boss who thinks filing is a personality. Same decade, same country, same crushing expectation that you smile through all of it. But two completely different versions of exhausted tonight. You will live both. It is the 1950s. You are a woman, and the universe has already sorted you into one of two boxes before your feet even hit the floor. Box 1. A tidy little house in the suburbs, a husband, 2.5 children, and a lawn that quietly judges you. Box 2. A rented room in the city, a job that tolerates you, and a clock that owns you outright. The box you landed in was not really about who you were. It was about geography, money, luck, and whether a man had turned up yet to file you under wife. Picture them waking up at the same dim hour, in a quiet bedroom 40 minutes from the city. The wife opens her eyes to floral wallpaper and a sleeping husband. In a cramped room downtown, the working girl opens her eyes to a cracked ceiling and a clanging radiator. Both women lie still for exactly 1 second, savoring the only fully private moment they will get all day. Then both of them get up, because the day does not care about your feelings, and neither does anybody else. Let us begin in the suburbs, where the day starts not when you wake up, but when everyone else needs you to be awake. The alarm goes off and you are already behind. Your husband needs breakfast, the kids need lunches, and the percolator needs babysitting. Like a small, angry electric pet, you have not had a single thought of your own yet, and you will not for hours. Bathroom, robe, downstairs, kitchen. The same steps, the same order, every single morning, like a very boring religious ritual you never agreed to join. First, the coffee. Because nothing in this house functions until the percolator does its bubbling, gurgling impression of a tiny volcano. Then the stove, which you light by hand with a match and a small prayer. Then the eggs, the toast, the bacon laid out in tidy rows like soldiers reporting for duty. Upstairs, the children are stirring. You climb back up, peel them out of bed, wrestle them into clothes, and referee a dispute over whose turn it is to be miserable about oatmeal. You comb hair that does not want to be combed. You locate a missing shoe through what can only be described as maternal sonar. By the time everyone is fed and presentable, you have already done more before 8 in the morning than seems physically reasonable, and your actual day has not even started. Tea here is no clocking in, because you never clocked out. Tea here is no commute, because your workplace is also, your home is also your prison, is also technically your whole identity. He stands, he straightens his tie, he kisses you on the cheek if you are lucky, and he walks out the door into a world full of other adults, lunch meetings, water cooler conversation, and the dignity of a paycheck with his name on it. You stand at the threshold and wave, framed in the doorway like a postcard. After the war, builders like William Levitt figured out you could stamp out homes like cookies. And suddenly, there were entire towns of nearly identical little boxes. Inas, Inet, Twanets, Inets, Tas, Nas, Intash, Intaz, Nas, Taz, Inas, Intaz, Fia, Fin, Inana, Inat, Ina, ina, inan, ina. 2, which looks like the house across the street, which looks like every house for a mile in any direction. Same floor plan, same windows, same little patch of grass. And conformity was not just architectural. It was a full-time social expectation. The neighbors noticed things. In that, inan. Think of it as social media before the phones, except you could not log off and your followers lived next door. Now about that house. It was not just where she lived, it was the job. The 50s sold women a fantasy of push-button freedom, the gleaming electric range, the automatic washer, the refrigerator, the size of a small car. These machines were going to give you leisure. The ads swore, oceans of glorious free time. Spoiler, they did not. Instead, the standards simply rose to fill the space. Now your floors had to gleam, your roast had to be flawless, and your free time mysteriously evaporated into a fog of waxing and basting. Before the washing machine, doing laundry once a week was a heroic feat. After the washing machine, there was no excuse for anyone in the family to wear the same shirt twice. Was there? The machines did not shrink the work, they just inflated the expectations until your day filled right back up to the brim. It is the eternal con of convenience. The dishwasher arrives, and somehow, you are doing dishes more. Now cross town. The other woman is already moving. No breakfast performance. No waving from the doorstep. The city girl's morning is a faster inet, twanets, inets, tas, nes, tep, n, sid, n, I, nes, thy n, orm, breeze, on, I, s, or sid, I, or, an easy ed, in lee, and, an, inesses, ines, inet, twanets, inets, tas, nas, tenes, en, las, ines, wa, in, si, la, intes, fran, in, s, in, a, n, in, us, in n, in t, n, in that, inan, in morning, since before she left. She is on time. She is always on time. She is always on time. Being late is a luxury she cannot afford. She takes the elevator to the 7th floor, hangs her coat on a hook beside 20 identical hooks, and sits down at a steel desk beside 20 identical desks in a room full of women who are also certain, and sits down at a steel desk beside 20 identical desks in a room. The typing pool hums. 40 women, 40 machines, all clattering in a kind of industrial music. The work itself is not complicated. Inas, ines. She types 80 words a minute, sometimes 90, and the only acknowledgement is that no one yells at her. A man named Stan, who has never typed anything in his life, walks the aisle, calling each of them sweetheart honey doll, with the easy confidence of someone who has never once considered how that sounds. Bach is a Franz is coffin. She fetches it, she smiles. She sets the cup on the corner of his desk where he will reach for it without looking up. Without thanking her, without thanking her, without thanking her, without ever quite seeing her as a person so much as a feature of the office that happens to wear pumps. Lunch is 40 minutes, taken at a counter 2 blocks away, where she sits beside strangers and eats a sandwich. She could not afford to skip. The man beside her reads a paper. Itas. Nobody speaks. She is alone in a city of millions, which is a particular kind of alone that has nothing to do with being by yourself. She pays with singles from her own purse, earned by her, spent by her, answerable to no one. There is a small private spent by her, answerable to no one. There is a small private satisfaction in that. Even if the wage itself inet, twanets, inets, t, na, tu, na, t, gaya, white, what, in s, I, is, and yes, is, I, an. But she does not say so out loud because the cost of speaking up would land entirely on her, and the cost of staying silent also lands entirely on her. And she has learned to do the math very quickly. And here is where the two lives meet their strangest contrast. The city girl earned her own wage, small and unequal, but hers, the suburban wife, often handled far more money and controlled almost none of it. By any measure, the wife handled enormous sums. She ran the household budget, managed the grocery money, made the daily spending decisions that kept the family fed and clothed and functioning. And yet almost none of it was hers. It was the husband's salary, earned in his name, dispensed at his discretion. In many homes, she received an allowance, a word usually reserved for children. A married woman in the 50s often could not open a credit account, take out a loan, or sign a major financial contract in her own name without a man's signature backing her. The city girl had less money and more control. The suburban wife had more money and less control. Between them, they made a perfect, dispiriting diagram of how the era handled women and cash. Back in the suburbs, the dinner hour approaches. The housewife has spent the entire long day preparing for this moment. The pot roast comes out of the oven at exactly the right minute. Mashed potatoes whipped by hand, a vegetable usually overcooked by modern standards, but correct by the standards of the era. The table set just so. She herself, refreshed, lipstick reapplied, apron whisked off, smile fixed in place, just as the door opens and he steps inside expecting exactly this and nothing less. The advice handed down to wives about this hour could be genuinely staggering. Be cheerful, have his slippers ready, do not burden him with the troubles of your day, because his day was the real one. Make him feel like the king of a peaceful castle. Read that as job description, and it stops sounding like marriage and starts sounding like running a very specialized hotel for one demanding permanent guest who never tips, and occasionally asks why dinner is a little late. And so the day ends in both worlds at once in the suburbs. The wife stands at the sink and finishes the dishes. Every surface wiped, every dish returned to its shelf. The kitchen looking the way it had looked at 7 that morning, as though nothing had happened in it all day, as though the 14-hour production that had used every surface and every pan had simply not occurred. Inet, twanets, inads, go ace, herself into her small rented room, takes off her heels, and sits on the edge of the bed for a long moment before she begins the smaller version of the same evening routine. The suburban wife has the house, the husband, the children, every glittering thing the culture swore would complete a woman, and a hollow space inside her that no appliance could fill. The city girl has the freedom, the paycheck, the apartment with the fire escape, every taste of independence, the wife quietly envied, and a world that treated her whole vivid life as a mistake to be corrected by marriage. What unites them, underneath the obvious differences, is the thing that matters most. Neither was permitted to be the full author of her own life. The wife's days were scripted by a role that asked her to disappear into a house. The working girl's days were scripted by a world that paid her less, watched her closely, and counted down the clock to her wedding. Both moved through lives largely drawn by other people. The streets were different. The cage was the same shape. Only the wallpaper changed. And yet, neither of them was broken by it. The wife who buffed the floors and swallowed the unnamed sorrow was no fool. She felt the wrongness keenly, even when she had no words for it. And that feeling was itself a kind of quiet rebellion. Only the wallpaper changed, and yet neither of them was broken by it. The wife who buffed the floors and swallowed the unnamed sorrow was no fool. She felt the wrongness keenly. Inas. Or inas. By N. And stretched the unequal envelope and laughed on the fire escape was building. In real time. A proof that a woman could stand on her own. Something was stirring in both of them. They did not know it yet, sitting in their quiet house and their loud apartment at the close of another long day. But the questions they were starting to ask were the first faint cracks in a wall that had seemed permanent. History was about to make a little more room. These two women, in their different ways, were the ones leaning on the door,